What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So as you know, we've been following this data breach that Insomniac and Sony suffered with a ransomware group who said that they would leak all of this information from Insomniac if they didn't pay up money. Well, it looks like they did leak this stuff out there, and it is an overwhelming amount of information. We're gonna go over exactly what happened here, and there is one part of it that I wanted to cover because it is something that is very relevant to gaming, and it's gonna be coming up as we go along here with Insomniac's plans. And we're also gonna be talking about an incredible discovery for the original PlayStation, one that turns a retail game into a full-on boot disc for burned copy. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. If you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Metacritic and the worst games of 2023. Of course, there's a big celebration around the best games of the year and full Game Awards ceremony, all that. But you gotta remember, there's the opposite side of that chart, and well, they did put that together, and in fact, we can see this posted up. Makes it a bit easier to read here. VGC went ahead and just kind of outlined them here with the number one, which technically would be the worst game, is indeed Lord of the Rings Gollum with a 34. I think that's kind of expected. Then you have Flashback 2 at a 35, Grey Hill Incident at a 38, which that sounded like an absolutely terrifying game. I guess it didn't work out too well though. Quantum Error at a 40. Let's see, Testament at 41, Crime Boss at 43, Hellboy at 47, Gangs of Sherwood at 48, and Loop 8, 49, then Gargoyles Remastered, which is unfortunate at a 49. But yeah, if you were wondering, the worst game of the year apparently in terms of Metacritic rating was indeed Lord of the Rings Gollum, and I don't think that's really shocking anyone after seeing how it turned out. Also, there's an interesting patent that was discovered from Sony, which we like to follow these from time to time because it gives us an idea as to some plans at least that they've put into place or maybe thought of in the past, enough at least to patent the idea. Well, this has to do with an adaptive difficulty setting. Insider Gaming actually pointed this out, and it is titled Adaptive Difficulty Calibration for Skills-Based Activities in Virtual Environments. Now, there's an entire algorithm that's outlined here, and really the idea is see how you are doing and then adjust what you're facing in terms of maybe enemy difficulty with health, attack power, defense, what have you, or even changing up the environment or what you're facing. Could even be removing like pits that you have to jump over and just kind of put out a flat piece of land, just to make the game line up with how you're able to play it and how good you are at it. And I think this is an interesting idea for more of the mainstream audience who doesn't go into the options and play around with the settings or isn't really sure which one is right for them. So I don't necessarily think that this would become a default thing and they're just getting rid of difficulty settings completely, because I don't know, I would like to at times, right, just be able to go up against hardest difficulty, and if I just keep dying, hey, you know what, it's fine, we're used to the Souls formula, we'll just keep bashing our head against the wall until we eventually get through it, or just figure out some shortcut or way to kind of game the system there. But not a bad idea. I feel like for the vast majority of people who maybe want to jump into a game from time to time and not have to think about easy, normal, hard, any of that. Oh, and we do have a new Prince of Persia game on the horizon. This, of course, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and it looks like, as we can see here on Twitter, it has gone gold. Exciting stuff. Of course, this game coming out January 18th, but there will be a demo available January 11th, about 3 weeks from now, and I did have a chance to play this. I'm gonna have a video just kind of going over my thoughts with the few hours I had to sort of preview the game, but basically, I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you just enjoy Metroidvania-style games. But this one in particular, I think has a lot of potential based on what I saw there. So I'm absolutely picking this one up. I'm going to be playing it probably on multiple different systems. And again, I'll say a bit more in my preview coverage coming up. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this devastating leak. That's the only way I can describe it. That's now hit Sony and Insomniac. There is quite a bit of information that's now floating around online as people continue to go through the 1.3 million files. That all adds up to over 1.5 terabytes of data that was just dumped online. Now, first though, let's go back to that original report that we did cover here a week ago, and we can see this was posted up by Cyber Daily saying that the Spider-Man 2 developer Insomniac Games hit by, I keep saying, I think it's Ricida ransomware attack. And the idea here, of course, a bunch of information was kind of locked away. They held it and put it up for sale at $2 million, or apparently like 50 Bitcoin. And they said, hey, Sony, you can come buy this if you want. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and dump this online in 1 week's time. And fast forward to December 19th. Says Rysada dumps more than a terabyte of Insomniac Games internal data. Interestingly enough, they published 98% of the leak. Apparently there were some things that they didn't, and some are speculating that they may have sold that part of it. It's really hard to say what happened with the other 2%. Nonetheless, the amount of data coming out of this is, as I mentioned, overwhelming. The big things here, though, would be that really, I mean, this is all under a criminal investigation at this point. Sony has already responded a week ago that they were looking into this and an investigation was underway. But I would say the most troubling part about this isn't the video game stuff. It's the fact that many of the different employees, the developers, what have you here, their information is just out there through this. All right. So there's a bunch of people who work at Insomniac who have all their info just kind of doxed. There's a lot of HR documents, I-9 employment forms, termination documents, all kinds of tax stuff, passports. That would be the part that I would be the most concerned about if I'm Sony, because at the end of the day, Wolverine's it's just a video game. You're seeing a game that's in early development. It's like, okay, that, or I don't know, all these people's information is being spread out, we could say around the dark web, or being potentially set up for something like identity theft. I did see a lot of people ask, why didn't Sony just pay the $2 million and get all that information off the internet? Well, there's no guarantee that they wouldn't just leak it anyway, but if you do pay out a ransomware group, guess what they're gonna do? The entire thing all over again, whether it's to another video game company, or the message itself will just get out there to many of these groups to keep doing it because there is money involved then. Capcom didn't pay out as they shouldn't have. Rockstar and Take-Two didn't pay out with GTA 6, and Sony, I feel, did the correct thing here, did not pay out. Now, when it comes to the video game side, there's a lot that got out there. And really, the crazy thing is, Wolverine, is completely out there. There's a playable build that's floating around. There's a bunch of gameplay footage. The entire plot is just out there right now for the game. And beyond that, there's a lot of internal documents that even go outside of just Insomniac when it comes down to budgets for different titles and planning when it comes to just Sony's overall ecosystem and even next generations. Very brief stuff there, but people are still going through all these files, and it seems like every hour more information is being dumped online. Now, with all this going on, there was a lot of discussion around the ethics of reporting a leak like this that was mostly obtained through just malicious activity. It's ransomware. A group was able to infiltrate one of their computers for their entire system, probably from somebody installing or clicking through an exe, and then that was it. They were able to lock down all kinds of information. And when that gets out there, it reminds me very much of what happened with Capcom. Went through a very similar thing. And I feel like this discussion came up, but not as much as I'm noticing with Insomniac. And I think there's a couple of reasons here. One, this is a massive leak. I would say it is larger than what we saw with Capcom. But I also think that there are a lot of people who do have ties to Insomniac, whether they're just fans of the studio and what they're doing right now, or just outright relationships with the studio itself, friendships with some of the different developers there. It does bring into question kind of the overall personal side of things when it comes to people reporting on this stuff and knowing and befriending a lot of the people at these places, and also just the overall human empathy element behind it. And for me, I pretty much just approach it as I've approached all the other leaks. You don't show any of the actual slides on screen because, let's face it, Sony would have reason to say, nope, we're cutting that down. That's part of a criminal investigation. But I think, especially in this case, there are times the information is so relevant to gaming and it's out there already, and it's going to come up probably over the next several years. It's hard to just ignore it. It really is. You can't really bury your head in the sand with the amount of info that's just floating around now with this. You couldn't log on to Twitter, couldn't go on Reddit, Facebook, anywhere without seeing information around Insomniac, their future plans, Wolverine, and some stuff that Sony has when it comes to budgets and other ideas, we'll say, around games and even their next generation device. So what I'm going to do here is, it's timestamped, of course. We are going to take a look at one piece of information that has come from this leak. And you can skip it if you like, but it is very interesting to see maybe the direction of Insomniac and some of their future titles. And that has to do with Insomniac's roadmap up until 2032, at least the plans when that slide and that information was stored, because remember, it's very fluid behind the scenes with a lot of these game development cycles, and plans change pretty quickly. So things may have altered since these plans were put in place, but nonetheless, I'm going to go over some of the details in the slide, of course, not showing it here on screen, so you'll be treated to different trailers or gameplay or anything like that from different titles with Insomniac. But at the top, we do have Spider-Man 2, of course, that is already out. The next game would be Venom: Lethal Protector. So we do have a Venom game coming up, which shocks no one because Insomniac themselves, I'm sure, have alluded to this multiple times in different interviews, and it seems like it would make sense as a smaller game, similar to Miles Morales, maybe to bridge the gap until we get to, inevitably, Spider-Man 3. Now, beyond that, we do have Wolverine, which appears slated for 2026. That is unfortunate. I thought that was going to be a 2025 game, although hard to complain when we have Venom in 2025, then Wolverine in 2026, and then we move to 2028 with Spider-Man 3. I also want to stress there is some information around the release of Spider-Man 3 and the potential for it being 2 parts, as in they would release basically half of it as part 1, and then the following year part 2 would release. That, I think, is just them kind of spitballing or thinking about different ways they could go about releasing and making up for what are, just massive budgets behind some of these different games that they're licensing, obviously, from Marvel. There is an entire fee and royalty payment that comes with that. So I think they're just trying to figure out different ways they can account for that. Then finally, 2029 would have Ratchet and Clank, a brand new title. So that's exciting stuff there to at least hear something other than a Marvel game, because yeah, this is a big topic point. Insomniac's kind of the Marvel studio now, because beyond that would be Marvel's X-Men. Now, after they get through X-Men, that being in 2030, 2031, a brand new intellectual property. So it would be about 7 years out from them doing something that's not a Ratchet and Clank and not a Marvel property, which can go 2 ways for people. If you're a big fan of just Marvel and the idea of Insomniac tackling some of these series like X-Men, which that is very intriguing. I'm curious to see the direction they would take that in, and I assume Wolverine would work to build up to that, maybe even Spider-Man 3. So interesting stuff there. Them, of course, building out seemingly their own little MCU in video games. And then whatever their new intellectual property would be, that, along with Ratchet and Clank, seems like it would fall in line with the launch of the PlayStation 6, maybe even Spider-Man 3. That could be a situation where that's kind of a cross-gen title as well, so they do have to still play into the idea of new hardware coming up around that time. And Ratchet and Clank, as we've seen, does a really good job showing off the new features from their new system with the hardware, ray tracing, all that sort of thing. But this isn't even scratching the surface with the amount of information that is out there currently. So the big thing I would say is watch out for the Wolverine stuff, because if you were really excited for just that small cinematic trailer that they released, like the whole game is out there, and it's tough. Like, if you're an Insomniac right now and you're working on this, it's absolutely devastating to see that. But I will say, I think it looks pretty good. So just stick with it. I liked at least some of the stuff that was getting thrown around for Wolverine. I think they're on the right track for that one. Next up, let's talk about an incredible discovery for the original PlayStation. That a certain retail game is just a boot disc if you go through many, many steps and different cheat codes. I'm realizing something, the younger audience. The cheat codes are like when you use a credit card with microtransactions in some of these newer AAA games. Yeah, it would give us a bunch of health and in-game money and stuff. We just pressed a bunch of buttons, though. We didn't swipe the card. But either way, this is, incredible stuff with Alien Resurrection being used to boot burned CDs. Now, this was posted up by MVG, Modern Vintage Gamer. Make sure you check this video out because he does it in real time. Takes a couple of minutes maybe from start to finish, and it has to do with you going through a bunch of different cheat menus to eventually get to a point where you hold down a couple of buttons and you just change the Alien Resurrection disc out with a burned CD. You used Silent Hill, and it just went ahead and booted right up. I mean, that's amazing. And I'm sure the homebrew community, the hacking community right now is absolutely on fire over this because apparently Alien Resurrection you can just use to boot into a disk that's burned, and that maybe they can put things on their unsigned code. Again, I'm not really sure what the extent would be there, but you definitely want to check this out because this is really cool stuff. And if you have an Alien Resurrection disc laying around, or maybe you want to go out and pick one up, yeah, try it out and see what you think. See if you can get burned copies to work there. And this is completely original and unique to MVG's channel. He actually reached out seemingly to the developer behind the game and was able to find all this information that's been hidden this entire way. It is linked down below in the sources. Absolutely check it out. Really, really cool stuff. And then our last bit of news. Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We're so close. Like 2 months away, February 29th, 2024, this game will come out, and we had a bit more information get out there, and an awesome Game Informer cover, which you can see here. Look at this thing. It's, Sephiroth, Cloud, it's like an end-to-end cover, so you kind of open it up, and you have it going all the way across there. That looks awesome. So this is one of those cases where, yes, I'd be picking up the magazine itself just for that artwork. Really, really cool stuff. But Game Informer did an entire preview on the game, and I want to go ahead and head over here to Twitter with Genki, who did a very good job just summarizing all this here in one spot, but I'll have the article also linked down below in the sources if you want to read through it. But they say the main storyline took about 40 hours, over 100 hours with all the side content, and that will make up 80% of the exploration-based content. There's new towns and cities, such as Crow's Nest, that didn't exist in the original, so we're gonna have like brand new original towns and cities to go through. Kate Sith has a unique battle system in which he summons the Moogle. You also see some screenshots here that look awesome. You can freely climb short cliffs and ledges in the open world. And there's even a deck building card minigame called Queen's Blood. You compete against various NPCs across the region. I mean, the game looks awesome. From all the previews we've seen and more info that comes out, the game just looks better and better. And I am absolutely ready to dive into this game, especially after the ending for Final Fantasy VII and some of the characters, we'll say, that have been set up here, and a lot of confusion also being set up, and I expect Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to confuse me even more. So, I mean, it's a trilogy, so I assume each entry is going to get crazier and crazier and crazier, and I'm absolutely here for it. So, exciting stuff. Make sure you check out that Game Informer preview down below, and just a few more months. February is right around the corner. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, which January game release are you most excited for? Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth took the top spot, but not by much. Look at that. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown right there with it, along with Tekken 8. Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Okay, 13%. Probably just for that, I'm sure, the survival mode. Then another code, Recollection. For me right now, I play the Like a Dragon games here and there. I liked Yakuza 7. Like a Dragon quite a bit, actually. But Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, absolutely on my radar right now. And unfortunately, I'm not really a Tekken person, and I made that very apparent in the most recent Spawn cast. But definitely look forward to Prince of Persia. I would also like to do really well because I want to see Sands of Time Remake really knock it out of the park, because I still think there's a place for Prince of Persia in current gaming time. So here's hoping that series can see a pretty good resurgence and start with Lost Crown. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Elena. Says, did you know Gaming pointed out that each Luigi's Mansion game makes nearly double the sales of the last game? They should start working on number 4 soon. Hopefully they learn from the mistakes of the last game. Something tells me Luigi's Mansion 4 is probably either in full development or pre-production. They're absolutely no way that they're not thinking, let's make another Luigi's Mansion, because 3 sold really, really well. And the thing with Luigi's Mansion that I think would be really cool to see with their new system, it really shows off what each system can do when it comes out, right? Whether it's the GameCube, the 3DS, the Switch. It's like top tier stuff for each system in terms of the visual department. And if what we're hearing about this new system from Nintendo is correct, they could do some really impressive stuff. And you think about the ray tracing elements they could add in for a lot of the lighting with Luigi's Mansion. It look really, really cool. So yeah, something tells me Nintendo knows people probably want Luigi's Mansion 4 just based on the sales of 3, and I think it's gonna look really, really cool when they eventually present that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, or is the entire situation right now that continues to unfold around Sony and Insomniac with this ransomware group. Let me know what you think about, I guess, their roadmap, and of course, try to be respectful when it comes to spoilers, especially around Wolverine with the entire script and plot just kind of out there online. And then also, what about that discovery that MVG posted on his channel about the PS1? You may have had a boot disc this entire time in your collection and you didn't even know it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.